right. Now, I am still, I would say, a learning Warhammer fan, right? I don't know everything. I do listen to a lot of audio, but or I listen to some audiobooks. I listen to breakdowns. Sometimes some of them are 6-hour videos about every part mark, and they're in depth. I'm actually in the I'm reading one right, not right now, but like I'm watching one right now, stuff like that. I don't really care about the tabletop. I do really like the lore ideas, right? I've mostly been to like big lores, right? Like SCP lore, or that also depends. Sometimes some of like Olympus type, god lore. Also times just lore of games, right? From worlds of uh from like theories from like Don't Hug Me I'm Scared to other like different story bonds of entire worlds like Halo, and then like the Flood and all that. I like learning about stuff, right? It's my pastime, right? Star Wars lore from their comics, their non-canon legendary legends stuff. So like some some Call of Duty lore. What else do I do? Like I like lore, right? I like lore. Point is, right? And I understand that I don't know a lot about Warhammer, considering there's so many books and so much to do. So, I wanted to get some of that done, right? So today I found this popped out of my timeline, and I watched like 5 minutes of a couple, and I thought this is very nice, and I'm gonna do it. React to this. Today we're doing Necrons, literally the strongest faction ever. Now, what I do know about the Necrons, I know their basic history from the War in Heaven to the different factions united, the deal they made with basically the Star Gods and everything against the Old Ones and all that. A quotations deal, right? And and then what happened after that? The banishment of the Silent King, the erasing of the codes, to the sleeping, to the reawakening, to the different lords. I don't know names per se. I know because I'm just not that good at memorizing everything I know. But I know the general top two most outstanding, technically three if you counting the Silent King, Necrons that I know, right? Because I know there's different dynasties, right? Like the Flesh, or I know like there's also decomposition, right? Like the Flesh Terrors. There's like guards, and then not guards, but like there's like then the soldier, then the like I'd say captain, then there's like the generals, and then the emperors of the dynasties and all that type thing. I might be wrong, but it's just how I can remember it. I remember Tarn's the Infinite, and he's like a museum collectionist, collecting anything and everything, like the clone of a Primarch, who's the soul of the original Primarch, is in it. Just frozen, and then the entire battles just taken out of time and frozen in his vaults. It is. But I also heard, like read about like his relationship with his human, I would say slaves, scribes, whatever. Point is like somewhat not that bad considering. He honors their wishes and everything, and they're like, it's like each generation of the human, the family gets raised in that to be like that caretaker of some certain things. Then we got that one, not strong as a Silent King, but that one general. I forgot what his name was. He's like blue, I think. That he does it's very good. He's very strong. He's like a very renowned, respected thing here. No, you have not missed that reaction. That one will be next, okay? I got a little bit of a list to get to today. But he's a bit of a he's a bit of a not I wouldn't say warmonger, but he's about of a really, really strong general who I don't think he aligns with the Silent King, if I remember right. So that is about, I know about like their scarabs, what they kind of do, what their weaponry does, some of their more assassin type units, like that type of general knowledge, but I don't really know that much besides that. So, with that being said, that long 5-minute tangent of me explaining what I do know, let's get right into this video and find out what we don't know, shall we? And why they're the strongest faction literally ever.
Hi friends, it's spooky season, woo! And it's almost Halloween.
And I know
or maybe it is Halloween
it's
and
mid,
like past Halloween, depending on how long it takes me to draw this video. But anyways, today we're talking about the most Halloween 40k faction of them all. Nope, not them.
I was gonna say the Night
Not them
Lords.
either. Alright, come on, we talked about this last week. Damn it, we're talking about the Necrons. They're spooky, scary skeletons, they're hordes of the undead, spirit shenanigans. They even have creepy crawlies, come on.
I mean, they get more
are the
Egyptian
Halloween
design, to
faction
be
of
honest.
And they're also just a really cool faction in general. Unkillable hordes of the undead, unfathomably advanced tech, old man squabbling, and they shoot green. What's there not to love with the Necrons? The history of the Necrons started with a humble little thing called the War in Heaven. And the history of the War in Heaven started with a little thing called the Necron-tier. And the history of the Necron-tier...
I gotta say this, War in Heaven does sound like a stand... I mean, obviously, because Made in Heaven, you know? Made in Heaven. It does give, like, stand energy. How are you today? Me, I woke up and I am armed. Good job for you. Hope you slept well. Here's Necron-tier. Right.
Started with a little thing called constantly dying to solar winds of death.
The world's kind of fucked you over.
Radiation.
Yeah.
Of death.
Low life
and
expectancy.
Such and such. The Necron-tier were one of the oldest xenospecies in the galaxy, and they're long played by the aforementioned solar winds of death and deadly radiation of death and such and such. This created a culture of death.
No, you wouldn't say.
Elaborate tombs and struggled to keep their species alive. However, despite their ill fortune, the Necron-tier endured and developed extremely advanced technology. Using their mega tech, the Necron-tier expanded their empire across the galaxy in hopes of better conditions.
But they kept dying.
However, no matter where they went, their species remained sickly. Some say this was a curse, others say it was warp-related, but a headcanon that I actually really like from a biological perspective is that since they evolved in such poor conditions, they evolved to not be able to repair cell breakdown as well, since it didn't really matter to them anyways. So, from this perspective, they kind of evolved super cancer.
Damn.
Oh, but father, Pokemon said evolution would give me wings or something
No,
bad.
it gave you cancer.
Nope, sorry son, just cancer.
The Deadpool experience.
It couldn't be at least Digimon evolution where I evolve gun hands or something? You'll get gun hands soon enough, kid. Huh? Who are you? Oh wait, I'm not supposed to appear yet.
Not
sorry,
yet.
Sorry, guys.
Go away a little bit, little too ahead of yourself.
Another funny theory is that they actually lived relatively long lifespans, but they were still angry about not living as long as they wanted to and / or believed
that
they
would be
to.
funny.
This is because another trait of the Necron-tier culture is that they were extremely ambitious and entitled. Along with seeking new homes to prosper in, the Necron-tier conquered many alien races. And they didn't conquer diplomatically, that's boring. Nope, they used their mega death rays and other tech to wage
orbital
war.
beam cannon.
A franchise called Warhammer, I know. But anyways, eventually the Necrons came across the old ones. They're basically just magic space lizards who are the first sentient life forms in the Milky Way galaxy. The Necron-tier asked the old ones to share their secrets
lizard
of immortality,
god.
but they were refused. Be it because
old lizard god of the pool, would you bless me with eternal life? No. No, you guys kind of suck. You guys are kind of entitled motherfuckers. Can you guys not want eternal life? Like, listen, if I could give eternal life to anybody, it would specifically not be you. And then they went, well, fuck you then. But then they went, well, I'm a god, bitch. Backhand slaps down. And then the instigators that are the star gods went, you gonna let them talk to you like that? I mean, me personally, I wouldn't do that. Here, you know what? Here's a gun, child. Go make violence.
Old ones couldn't grant the Necron-tier their wish, or simply because they didn't want to, the Necron-tier shed some Necron tears of rage and declared war on the godlike lizards. And thus began the War in Heaven. The war united the once feuding dynasties, and with their great tech, newfound unity, and powerful sense of purpose, the Necron got absolute
manifest destiny. No, no.
and powerful sense
Yeah,
of
we will rule these gods. We will take them over. Remembers. Oh wait, these things are gods. Proceeds to get stomped.
the Necron
Backhanded.
got absolutely
Look at this,
curb stomped.
yeah.
And in a few centuries were almost completely destroyed.
Yeah, Blizzard got
luckily, the
hands, they
Necron
got
tier came
all the
across some
hands.
nice fellows called the Catan, another godlike species that could rival the old ones. The Catan spokesperson, a lovely guy called the Deceiver, which, to be fair, he wasn't called that until later on.
Ah,
but
yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Deceiver
yeah. I mean,
talked to
he's
the
gotta
leader of
earn
the
that name.
Necrons, Sazarek, the Silent King. Which, by the way, cool Silent King fact, the position is called as such since the Necron race was governed by the Triarch. Essentially, the Silent King would have two little buddies, and whenever the king would make a decree, he would need to tell it to his little pals. Then, the pals would judge if it was a just decree, and they would have the ability to ignore it, alter it, or whatever as long as the other one agreed. So, it was kind of like a mini checks and balances system. All that to say, he's called the Silent King because he's only allowed to talk to his Pharaons. But anyways, the Deceiver promised immortality for the Necron tier if they were to ally with the Catan against the old ones. The Triarch discussed this matter, and the Necron Royal Court also voiced their opinions, and in the end, only Orican the Diviner opposed allying with the Catan. Orican warned of the potential deception at play, and to this day, still brings it up in I told you so fashion, which, to be fair, he did. So, too bad for Nerdican the Dorkhiner, the Silent King was just too excited to get immortality and to destroy the old ones once and for all.
And then proceeded to be brought into a building and made your soul get driven out and put into robot bodies. You got plugged into the EA servers, bro. I'm sorry, you know. They took you to Amazon shop and they converted you to the next version of basically AI. All right, you got turned into goddamn drones, and you got nothing. You signed the contract. I'm sorry, bro. Should have read the fine print.
Deceiver. Quite literally, that is. Since after joining the K-Team, the Necron tier underwent the biotransference.
Yeah.
Well, it's a deal then. Excellent. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Wait,
What?
Nothing. Did you say robot?
Yep.
The Silent King was the first to undergo this process and had his Necron tier flesh replaced with the living metal in the bio furnaces. But immediately after doing this, the now soulless Silent King learned a funky new word called regret. Unfortunately for him, though, he already had his subjects undergo the biotransference right after him, so R.I.P. soul. Oh, my old hammer simp brain wants to make a joke so bad right now. Oh, I won't. It's too obvious and lame. It's not even fully true.
Say it.
Looks like the 40k model range went through the biotransference. Am I right, boys? Haha, get it because the new models have no soul. Damn it. The new Necron models also look pretty cool anyway, so this is just a bad joke. Old models are better. But yeah, anyways, the biotransference granted the Necron tier immortal metal bodies, but robbed them of their souls.
I mean,
and thus, the Necrons
are they
were born,
immortal?
named
They
as
could
such
cheat
since the
death,
race collectively
but
shed some tears upon their grave mistake. 2 puns in 1 sentence.
You're working overtime, bro.
Along with losing their souls, most of the Necron tier also lost their sentience. Only the most powerful and high-ranking Necron tier retained their autonomy, and they led the soulless legions of Necrons in the biggest comeback in the Milky Way galaxy.
That's right. I was saying codes, but it was command protocols. Yeah. Hey, what are you doing in there, robot? I recognize you. I recognize that robot. What are you doing here? One of these not like the other.
Metal asses and funky god allies, the Necrons turned the tide of the war, and as a response, the old ones began making new warrior species like the Orcs and the Eldar.
Yeah, they really said, wait a minute. They kind of cooking over there. That shit is kind of a threat. So what I'm going to do is going to make my own people. And this will have absolutely no consequences further down the line at all, you know? Yeah, you guys were too late, lizards, right? Lizard brains, unfortunately, what you did, right, is about an ever-expanding fighting faction, a war species that will have only British accents, and an alien species that will advance so much and then be so depraved that you will bring a chaos god to fruition. Now, some say that chaos god always existed. Some say they didn't exist until that moment. I say it's Yeah, it's just how it is, man. All right, I say that's too much thinking for me. I'ma take some drink, forget this even is, and just accept that it is. All right, that's still too much thinking for one man by himself.
Eldar. Eventually, the war got so cuckoo crazy style that the Immaterium, which mirrors the Materium, became extremely violent and spawned
Yeah,
horrors that helped eradicate the old ones.
yeah, the kind of
With the
cooked up
old ones
hell.
gone, the Necrons had won the war in heaven, and all it
But
costed
now
them was
what?
most of their species, their literal souls, and I don't know, it took a pretty long time to do. They could have probably painted at least one 40k army in that time, I feel. But after the war,
One and
the
a half.
Necrons weren't done yet. Soon after the war, the Silent King betrayed the Catan, and at this point, they were so strong that they were actually able to shatter and enslave the Catan. Slaver get enslaved. So, after vanquishing two godlike species and waging the craziest war the galaxy has ever seen, the Necrons, they were a bit tuckered out. The
I
Silent
still
King
find it
used
funny and hilarious that this, as far as I understand, as far as I've seen, as far as many people have told me, and as far as I've seen a lot of people explain this war, it's still, to date, the longest and craziest and most destructive war ever to happen in this galaxy. Or in the universe. As far as I'm told, right? It's just crazy considering how crazy with both the Eye of Terror happening, and then also by the Great Rift forming and all that shit that happened there. It's just crazy. But then again, that is more contained into our galaxy. This could have been multiple. We don't know. We just know stories of it. We don't actually know the actual scale of it.
that the Eldar would defeat the remaining Necrons and gain dominion of the galaxy if something wasn't done. So he created great
The
stasis
EP
tubes
chamber,
and
for
ordered
sure.
the Great Sleep. He believed that the immortal Necrons could simply outlast the Eldar by sleeping past their wonder years.
Uh-huh.
So the Great Sleep
It worked.
began, and the Silent King exiled himself out of the galaxy. So then, a cool 60 million years later, the Necron.
Oh, we did skip the part where he did destroy the codes or the command protocols. So when they wake up, they kind of, could decide for themselves what to do. Unfortunately, nobody thought the side effects of giant sleeping would be, you know what? Give me a second. You just imagine that, okay, the side effects of this thing are mass delusions, craziness, internal hunger, even though you have no flesh, wanting of flesh. You might also consume or want to consume things even though you have your own mouth. You might also be completely fine. This is not a good trade. This did not help.
Sleeping past their wonder years. So
Oh,
the
thank
Great
you.
Sleep
Hello.
began, and the Silent King exiled himself out of the galaxy.
Yeah.
So then, a cool 60 million years later, the Necron tombs began to reawaken. Some Necrons reactivated earlier than others and established the Awakened Council in order to keep the peace with the Necrons that would awaken after them. And in the great 41st millennium, a large amount of Tomb Worlds are beginning to wake up and reestablish themselves as a major threat in the galaxy.
Yeah.
The Great Sleep was not without faults, however. The calculations were wrong, and there were a number of other issues. Firstly, the galaxy was still in turmoil, so the easy sweep that the Necrons had hoped for wasn't going to be an easy task.
Oh god, the
Also,
Tyranids.
a lot of the Tomb Worlds decayed, and either made the Necrons within insane, or just outright killed them. That latter oopsie leading to many millions of Necrons perishing. So then, in the present time, the Necrons are mostly trying to reunite their species and retake the galaxy, and hopefully reverse a biotransference. But finally, let's get into exactly what the Necrons...
Wait, let me see these guys. Okay, alright. Okay, wants to be energy or something, that's Tarns for sure. Wants to collect them all, I think that's the blue boy I was talking about. That was just like really good at war. Wants to reserve biotransfer unite Necrons, that's Silent King for sure. Wants to conquer all the world's robot overlords. I don't know you. Who the fuck are you? Who's this guy on the right? Who are you? See, the other three I recognize, they're like very big known. I don't really know you. Their weapons are so awesome though. I love these designs, alright? I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit a bit of the designs are awesome.
The biotransference. But finally, let's get into exactly what the Necrons are, now that we know exactly how they came to be. The Necrons are a skeletal, Terminator-like dudes whose living metal bodies resemble the long-lost Necron tier. But fun fact, they weren't
Ow.
always skeleton looking.
What?
Look
What
as
did I
such
do,
in 40K
Chad?
because despite being immoral, they still decayed a bit. Some Necrons wake up being surprised that they're now skeletons. From the biotransference, the Necron tier usually got Necron bodies based on their rank.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Soldier, Captain, Lord, General. What's cabinet member thingy? Lord, or monarch. There you go. I know that's not accurate, but that in my mind is kind of how I remember any of this information to begin with. I have to make something that makes sense in my brain.
So the regular warriors got the bare bones.
Okay, alright.
Warrior chassis, while the more prominent Necrons who kept their sentience resemble their old selves more than the standard warriors. In the Infinite Divine, it was also said that the Necrons sometimes had their personality traits mirrored physically in their new bodies. Along with this, they also get some other cool stuff like stronger regeneration abilities, Chronosense, which is just the ability to adjust the speed in which they perceive time. Necrons with Chronosense can literally see in slow motion, which is quite helpful. And they get some other cool stuff, most important of all being Immaculate Drip.
Yeah,
But in order of
grippy as
importance, the
fuck.
Silent King is on top and has the most advanced body, it being described as elegant and lively, unlike the other Necrons who often stagger about like metal zombies. Also, he's not supposed to look skeletal, unlike the other Necrons. His model looks cool, but they really dropped the ball by literally having him just look like a big Necron, in my opinion. I also don't think that a character like him should have gotten a model, but that's a take for another time. Then going
That
down,
is
there's the
a
Pharaons, who serve as the
controversial
rulers
thing,
of the
but
Necron dynasties, Nemesaurs, who serve Pharaons as
I kind of agree, as in, like, this should be more detailed, man. I ain't gonna lie. They could have done a little bit better. I'm not gonna disagree. Alright. I forgot to draw the Nemesaur, but also kind of, also because used to be a Nemesaur, so I guess I just imagine a younger Emocon here. Okay.
Necron generals. And then there's the overlords who rule groups of a few tomb worlds for their Pharaons.
Okay, there you go. Okay, yeah. So Silent King, or like Monarch, Pharaon. That's what it was. The cabinet members, Pharaons, overlords. General in my head. Lords. Yeah.
There's the lords who control a single tomb world. And then, serving the aforementioned ruling Necrons, there are the Immortals, who were once the Necron tier veterans and elite shock troopers. These dudes have a bit of autonomy to make battlefield decisions without a lord, but they're still quite limited, and they can be predictable since they cannot make new tactics. But these guys are still deadly warriors. They have a stronger repair mechanism than the warriors, and they have beefier weapons like Tesla carbines and Gauss blasters. I'll talk about the reanimation protocol and weapons in a bit. Then, finally, there are the lowly warriors. These dudes can only perform basic tasks on their own and need some type of leader to guide them in battle. Otherwise, they'll only do tasks like moving forward, shooting, and, if we're feeling a bit silly, moving forward while shooting. But
just in
even
case
still,
you were
the
wondering,
standard warrior is still a horrific sight in battle. They're still really durable, they have strong repair mechanisms, and even their standard infantry weapon is one of the strongest weapons in 40k.
I mean, they're literally the fuck you button. It's literally a fuck you. It's literally this thing is literally the act of a computer, right? Picking you up, grabbing your file, and throwing you into the trash bin, where you will consider, well, nobody will find you. Okay, these weapons literally are just the delete key to everything. They're atom. You will literally dematerialize by getting scratched by a bullet. Like, it's basic weapon. Dematerialization, unatomed, is crazy.
Which
also, I think the fact that the Silent King destroyed most of their extremely dangerous weaponry shows how crazy their weapons were pre the Great Slumber, which I think is crazy. The fact is, like, okay, these things are a little too much hacks. Let's break those down real quick.
Speaking of weapons, let's talk about their weapons.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, there's some other Necron specialists like Cryptex and Death Marks, but that's the basic hierarchy. So to the weapons. Necrons have some of the craziest, if not the craziest tech in the universe. Wait, no, scratch that. Necrons flat out have the
Yeah, I
craziest tech in the
agree.
40k universe. And keep in mind, before the Great Sleep, the Necrons chose to destroy their most crazy, dangerous.
Oh, yeah, literally, as I said, they destroyed most of the crazy, dangerous weapons. And to put a perspective on this, right? They have a table, a map of the universe, somewhere, right? If you grab a sun and press into it, that sun in real space will explode. They have a 3D scale model of the universe, and everything they press into it happens. And that is tech that they left over that is considered not as dangerous as their crazy death weapons that they had. Kind of puts in perspective how crazy those death weapons were probably at the time.
Dangerous weapons so that no one else could find and use them. So everything mentioned here are just like their B-grade weapons. The most common Necron weapon are their Gauss weapons. These funky things are theoretically magnet-based if their name is to be believed. They are depicted as shooting green lasers a lot, but that could also just be like the huge amount of energy or some other sci-fi thing. This gun's projectile breaks down whatever it hits on a molecular level. This means that it's effective against pretty much any target, atomizing guardsmen and easily eating through Space Marine armor. And remember, this is just the bare-bones loser infantry gun for these guys. Another common Necron infantry weapon are their Tesla carbines. They shoot living lightning that gets energized each time it arcs to a new target. These arcs are, again, effective against flesh and armor alike. This gun's biggest weakness being car washes, of course.
Yeah.
Then there's ships and weapons. This gun's biggest weakness being car washes, of course.
Jokes aside, Tesla carbines would actually probably be real good in a wet environment like a car wash, unlike the indestructible super mega coolest car ever.
Then their ships and weapon platforms also have upscaled Gauss and Tesla weaponry, along with some other nutty things like Doomsday Blasters, Death Rays, and Annihilator Beams. Then, on the higher end of things, it's everyone's favorite weapon to bring up when talking about the insanity of the Necrons. There's this little thing called the Celestial Orrery, and it's not solely a weapon, it's actually a...
Hey! That's what I'm talking about! Hey! I'm glad my knowledge... I didn't know how deep this guy would go. I'm glad my basic knowledge on the Necrons is proving useful here. Okay.
System or... well, an orrery. So it's basically just a super map. A map that can casually destroy entire stars with a push of a button. Yup, the Necron Super Google Maps has the ability to destroy stars if one was to destroy the representation of said star on the orrery.
Yeah.
Pretty whack.
It's very whack.
Yeah, and they also use enslaved Catan shards as weapons and to power their weapons.
Yeah, they have big energy.
Deal, that's just my god.
They just got gods and batteries. It's just true.
Odd battery. Now, these aren't all the weapons, but it does kind of give an idea of the nuttiness of the Necrons. And finally, we can't talk about Necron tech without talking about their most iconic ability, the reanimation protocol.
Yeah.
14 minutes into the video and we haven't even talked about the Necron reanimation protocol.
Literally just their undo button.
Necron video ever. Every Necron has the ability to repair itself due to their living metal bodies, and if they're damaged enough, they'll be automatically teleported back to a tomb world to be repaired or get a new body. This means that along with being incredibly durable, the Necrons are constantly repairing themselves and reanimating as they completely crush any foe they face. However, each time a Necron is reanimated, they lose a bit of themselves until they're eventually permanently killed. The higher ranking Necrons are able to reanimate more than the standard warrior, but they're still susceptible to going insane or losing themselves if they do it too much.
Well, finally, because they never really die though.
Dynasties. So, as previously mentioned, the Pharaons ruled dynasties made up of many tomb worlds.
Yeah.
Each dynasty. Fuck, I keep on switching between
dynasty and dynasty. I'm aware. I'm moving past it.
Each dynasty has its own. Fuck, I just did it again.
Yes, you did.
Okay, I just looked and I was right the first time. It's supposed to be dynasty, but I'm not gonna fix it. Each dynasty. Each group has their own goals and beliefs. They often feud with each other, and the overlords try to undermine their peers in order to gain more power. There's also some Necron sub-factions that are usually somewhat shunned from normal Necron society, but they're still useful in war. The most prominent of these being the Destroyer cults. Necrons who join the Destroyer cults despise all organic life and believe that the biotransference was actually beneficial.
PETA.
They wholly embrace their mechanical bodies, and they
weak.
heavily modify themselves to be the ultimate war machines so that they can eradicate all organic life. These dudes are considered crazy weirdos by most Necrons, but most overlords realize that these dudes with 6 gun arms or a literal dump truck ass might be useful in battle, so they're still commonly used in Necron armies. And finally, we're at the last sub-faction I'll talk about today. And
Flayers?
what better way to close off the Halloween episode
Flayers.
than to talk about the Flayed ones.
Yep.
The
Okay, that's exactly. I smell blood and flesh. I must consume. But I have no mouth, so I would proceed to just cover myself in the blood of the enemy and their flesh and wear their skin because fashion and reasons, right guys, right? I'm a cannibal without being able to actually cannibalize anything. Even though technically it's not cannibalism because, you know, they're not human, but you get my point. They want flesh, they try to eat flesh. They can't eat flesh because they have no mouths. And it's like kind of an ironic twist, if anything, but like...
Necrons who fell victim to the Flayer virus created by one of the Catan that the Necrons were actually able to truly kill. The Flayer virus makes the afflicted Necrons insane, warps their bodies to have horrible talons, and makes them crave flesh and blood just like I crave Cane's and Cane's sauce.
I never
Just
tried
like
Cane's.
Downing a delectable chicken meal, the flayed ones will flay their victims and then desperately try to eat them, which proves to be quite the challenge since they have no mouth or stomach. But anyways, these poor fellas are often shunned by most other Necrons since they fear getting the Flayer virus themselves.
They do use them as
Flayed ones
infantry.
are killed by their peers, but luckily for them, they have a special Flayer dimension they can retreat to, so they're nearly impossible to truly eradicate. In battle, they're also useful for their ferocity and killer instincts, but they're often hunted out afterwards once their usefulness expires.
Yep.
But despite going feral and going a bit crazy, the flayed ones do sometimes keep their minds and lament the fact that they're shunned by their former friends. They're also said to communicate with clicks of their claws. Wait a minute! Damn it, these guys are just that shitty Japanese creepypasta girl! But yeah, that's the Necrons. They're really nutty and they're only really limited by most of them being really sleepy eepy. The ones that are awake are constantly bickering with each other. And of course the madness that comes with living forever. Plus, hordes of undead Egyptian Terminators with insane technology. That's just super cool, man.
It is
also have
awesome.
some pretty dense lore, so writing this was a bit challenging.
Yeah, I was like, you explained the very basics of everything. I very much like that. Though I understand if you went into the specifics of anything, there's just so much shenanigans here, okay? Like, I'll be honest, right? Right? And then the memes could have been crazy though. Right? Who's better at stealing what's called a blood angel or Tarns the Infinite, you know? The memes could have been immaculate, but I respect it. I like this. This is great.
On what I should include, but in the future I want to make a video going more in depth on their units, talk about characters, and make a dedicated War in Heaven vid. But anyways, thanks for watching and thank you to all my patrons who support the channel. I really appreciate it. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing to all your shiny metal buddies. Thanks.
Alright, I'm gonna like this right here. As always, the original video is gonna be top of the description down below. Go ahead and check that out if you know, if you support them and everything. But this is very great. I very much enjoyed it. I really like talking about this. I'm glad I know I kind of been separating from Warhammer lore a little bit. I do want to get back into Warhammer lore though. I really love it. I really do love it. Let's be honest. There's not that very much other series that's interesting to dive into right now. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I think I'm gonna return to similar basics, you know. But this was very fun watch. As always, like and subscribe. Ow! And I will check you guys later. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye. And if you really like that content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you really want to see me live, I do stream on Twitch, so check me out there, crazies. Bye bye.